Okay, if you've ever tried making your own yogurt or kefir at home, you know that amazing feeling, right? That little bit of kitchen magic when a few simple ingredients transform into something incredible. But what about when that magic just fizzles out? Well, today we're going to crack the code on how to get consistent, delicious ferments every single time.
So, does this sound familiar? You follow the exact same yogurt recipe, but one batch comes out silky smooth and the next is super thick and tangy. It's a super common kitchen mystery, but I promise you, the solution isn't luck. It's all about science, and it comes down to the microscopic powerhouses you're working with, your cultures.
So, before we can really get into the details, we need to get on the same page about what a ferment actually is. I mean, it's this living engine that powers so many of our favorite foods. Everything from tangy cheese and fluffy bread to that bubbly kombucha we all love.
At its core, a ferment is alive. It's basically a little team of microorganisms. We're talking bacteria or yeast that just feast on the sugars in your food. And this little metabolic party is what creates those amazing, complex flavors and textures we love. You know, the kind of results you just can't get any other way.
All right, let's meet our first type of culture. These are the mesophiles. The best way to think of them is as the chill, room temperature champions of the fermenting world. They like things pretty gentle, pretty laid back.
Yeah, their sweet spot is right around room temperature, thriving anywhere between 20 and 45 degrees Celsius. And that's what makes them so awesome for beginners. You don't need any fancy equipment. It's why they're the engine behind so many classic ferments that you just leave out on your countertop.
And that mild temperature, it has a direct impact on how your food turns out. Mesophiles work low and slow, and that results in these wonderfully creamy textures and really delicate, nuanced flavors. You know that smooth, pourable kefir, or that perfectly tangy sauerkraut, or maybe a really silky, mild yogurt? Yep, that's the work of a mesophile.
Okay, now let's turn up the heat a little and meet our second group, the thermophiles. And as the name kind of gives away, these cultures love the warmth. They're pretty much the energetic, fired-up opposites of their cool and calm cousins, the mesophiles. Now this is where it gets really interesting. Thermophiles need a much warmer environment to do their thing. We're talking between 45 and 60 degrees Celsius. And that's exactly why you often need a yogurt maker or maybe a proofing box. You're basically creating the perfect, cozy, warm home for these little heat-loving microbes.
See, all that extra heat fuels a much faster, more intense fermentation. The result? You get much firmer textures and a more pronounced, tangy flavor. That higher temperature totally supercharges their metabolism, making them produce lactic acid way more quickly. This fast acidification causes the proteins, like in milk, to tighten up, creating that thick, spoonable texture. So if you're a fan of dense Greek yogurt or that amazing tang of a sourdough loaf, you have a thermophile to thank for that.
Okay, so we've met our two fermentation teams. Now for the big question. How do you actually use this info? How do you pick the right culture for your next kitchen project so you can finally get the exact results you've been dreaming of? It really just boils down to this simple choice right here. If what you want is something soft and mild, think pourable kefir or a crisp pickle, then the low and slow approach of a mesophil at room temp is your best bet. But if you're craving that firm, tangy Greek yogurt or a hearty loaf of bread, you've got to bring the heat for a thermophilic culture. The culture you choose isn't just another ingredient. It's basically the architect designing your final product.
The key here is to work backward from what you want. Don't just grab any old starter culture off the shelf. First, decide what you actually want to make. Then picture your ideal texture and flavor. Is it going to be creamy and mild or firm and tangy? Once you have that vision in your head, you can easily match it to the right culture. It's really that simple to finally take control of your ferments.
You know, this knowledge doesn't just solve problems. It totally unlocks a new level of creativity. Your kitchen goes from being a place where you just follow recipes to a laboratory for all kinds of delicious experiments, where you are in complete control of what happens next.
And that brings us to the most exciting part, because once you understand the rules of temperature and culture, you can start to have fun breaking them a little. What happens if you try combining a mesophile and a thermophile? What kind of new textures and flavors are just waiting for you to discover? The real adventure starts right now. So, what are you going to create first?